1 year ago, you stormed these walls with axes and screams. Today, you wake up here as a merchant. The year is 866 AD. You're a Viking living in York, except nobody calls it that anymore. You call it Jorvik, because this city belongs to Danes now. Last November, the Great Heathen Army arrived. 5,000 Norsemen under the command of Ivar the Boneless and his brothers. The sons of Ragnar Lothbrok, if you believe the sagas. They came for revenge. They came for land. They came because England is weak, divided, and ripe for conquest. The city fell in one day. The Northumbrian king Osberht was celebrating inside, unaware that Vikings were already climbing the walls. By sunset, he was dead. By dawn, Jorvik belonged to the north. But here's what makes this different from every other Viking raid. You're not leaving. This isn't hit and run anymore. This is conquest. Settlement. The beginning of what the English will call the Danelaw. The northern third of England, ruled by Danish law, Danish customs, Danish gods. You wake in a wooden longhouse built on top of Roman ruins. York was a Roman city 600 years ago. Iberacum, they called it. Constantine was proclaimed emperor here. Now the great stone walls built by legions protect Viking warriors instead. Outside you hear the mix of languages that defines Jorvik now. Old Norse, Old English, Latin from the few priests who stayed. The Saxons didn't all leave, many remained. They pay taxes to Danish jarls now. They trade with the same men who killed their king, because they have no choice. And because honestly, Viking rule might be better than constant civil war between Saxon kingdoms. You smell the river, the Ouse, flowing past your door. 10 Viking longships are docked there, not for raiding, for trade. Jorvik sits at the intersection of rivers connecting to the North Sea. Ships from Scandinavia, Francia, even Byzantium dock here now. What was once a backwater Saxon town is becoming a major trading hub. You're part of history's greatest transformation. The Viking Age isn't just about raids anymore. It's about settlement, integration, the creation of a hybrid Anglo-Scandinavian culture that will change England forever. In 150 years, a Danish king will rule all England. Viking DNA will be in half the English population. Norse words will fill the English language. But right now, you're just trying to sell some furs. The market at Coppergate is already busy. This is Jorvik's commercial heart, a narrow street lined with workshops and stalls. The smell hits you first. Leather, smoke, fish, horse dung, metal being worked. You're here to sell furs from your last raid up north. Beaver pelts, fox, a bearskin worth a fortune to the right buyer. Raiding isn't just about silver, it's about goods to trade. A Saxon merchant examines your pelts. His family has been in York for generations. Last year, you might have killed him. This year, you're negotiating prices. 3 silver pennies for the beaver, he offers in accented Norse. You counter. 5, this is quality. He grumbles but agrees. Business is business. The Danes rule, but the Saxons still know how to trade. Most stayed after the conquest. They had property, families, livelihoods. Fleeing meant losing everything. Some collaborated immediately. Others resisted briefly. All eventually accepted the new reality. Viking rule or starving. Around you, Jorvik's transformation is visible. Viking workshops making jewelry with Norse designs. Saxon craftsmen producing leather goods for Danish warriors. Blacksmiths forging swords and axes for the army. The goods come from everywhere. Silk from Byzantium, wine from Francia, amber from the Baltic, slaves from Ireland and Scotland, war captives mostly. You notice a Frisian merchant stall. He's selling glass beads and fine cloth. The Frisians have been trading with Vikings for decades. They don't care who rules. That's Jorvik's genius. It's not just conquest, it's economic integration. The Vikings turned a provincial Saxon town into an international trading port. A Danish jarl walks past. You recognize him. Halfdan Ragnarsson, one of the leaders of the Great Heathen Army. He's collecting tribute from Saxon merchants. But here's the thing. It works. The Saxons pay. The Vikings protect. Trade flourishes. Everyone profits. You complete your sale, 5 silver pennies richer. This is the Viking way. Raid one season, trade the next. The line between warrior and merchant is thin. You're both. Everyone here is both. An old Saxon woman selling bread watches you with resigned eyes. You conquered her city, killed her king. Now you're buying her bread with silver you probably stole. She takes your coin, says nothing. What can she say? This is Jorvik in 866 AD. Occupation disguised as integration, conquest packaged as trade, the future of England being written.
Midday, and you walk to the shipyard on the Ouse. This is where Viking power really shows. 10 longships are docked, 3 more under construction. This isn't temporary occupation. This is permanent settlement backed by naval dominance. The longships are magnificent, sleek, fast, shallow-drafted enough to navigate rivers, sturdy enough for open ocean. These ships carried the Great Heathen Army from Denmark. These ships can reach any coastline in England. That's why the Saxons can't defeat you. They have no navy. You control the rivers. You can strike anywhere, retreat to water, and they can't follow. A shipwright, one of the Danish craftsmen who came with the army, works on a new vessel, oak planks, iron rivets. The dragon-head prow that terrifies English monks and farmers. Where's this one going, you ask? East Anglia, he replies. Guthrum needs more ships for the campaign next spring. The Great Heathen Army isn't finished. Northumbria is conquered. Mercia is partially subjugated. But Wessex remains, the last independent Saxon kingdom under King Ethelred and his brother Alfred. Alfred, the Saxons call him intelligent, pious, a scholar who can also fight. In 12 years, he'll be the only Saxon king the Vikings can't defeat. He'll save Wessex, negotiate the Danelaw boundary, and become Alfred the Great. But right now, in 866 AD, he's just a young prince. The Vikings are unstoppable. Jorvik is the northern capital of a Danish England being born. You notice Saxon laborers working alongside Norse shipwrights. The Danes need local expertise. The Saxons need employment, so they cooperate. Build ships that might raid their cousins in Mercia. This is collaboration born of pragmatism. The alternative is starvation or death. A longship prepares to depart. Warriors load supplies. These aren't raiding supplies, they're trade goods. The ship is heading to Dublin, another Viking city. Jorvik and Dublin are connected nodes in a Norse trading network spanning from Iceland to Constantinople. You watch the ship push into the current. Oars dip. The sail rises, striped red and white, the colors of Denmark. If you want to witness Alfred's desperate stand against this invasion, subscribe. Because this age of Danish dominance won't last forever, but it will change England permanently. For now, the Ouse carries Viking ships in all directions, and Jorvik controls the north. Afternoon, and you attend the Thing, the Viking assembly where laws are made and disputes settled. This is how Danes govern. Not through kings issuing decrees, but through communal assemblies where free men have a voice. It's more democratic than Saxon kingship, honestly. The assembly gathers in the open square near the old Roman walls. Maybe 50 men, Danish jarls, warriors, wealthy merchants. A few Saxon landowners who've sworn loyalty to the Danes and earned the right to participate. Today's dispute. A Saxon farmer claims a Danish warrior stole his pig. The warrior denies it. Both present evidence. Witnesses speak. The Jarl presiding, Halfdan Ragnarsson himself, listens to both sides. Then the assembly votes. The majority finds the warrior guilty. He must pay compensation, 3 times the pig's value. He accepts the judgment, grumbles, but accepts. This is the Thing's power. Community enforcement of law. Refuse to pay and you're outlawed. Cast out. Anyone can kill you without penalty. The Danelaw is being born here. A Danelaw will eventually mean the territory under Danish control, roughly from the Tees River south to the Thames, east to the North Sea. Hundreds of English words come from Old Norse. Sky, egg, knife, window, husband, law itself. Place names ending in by or thorp are Danish. But it's not just language, it's legal concepts. Trial by jury, a Norse innovation. Local governance by assembly. Property rights extended to women. The Thing concludes. The warrior pays his fine. Justice is served. The Saxon farmer looks surprised but satisfied. You notice Saxon observers watching carefully. They're learning that Danish rule might actually be better, more predictable than the civil wars between Saxon kingdoms. This is how the Danelaw succeeds, not just through force, but through offering better governance. Within 2 generations, Danish and Saxon will be intermarrying. By 1066, England's aristocracy will be mixed Anglo-Scandinavian, but that's the future. Right now, you're just glad you didn't steal that pig.
Evening, and the Jarl's Hall fills for the feast. This is where Viking culture truly shows. The drinking, the boasting, the saga-telling that defines Norse identity. The hall is massive. Long wooden structure with a central fire pit. Smoke rises through a hole in the roof. Benches line both sides. Maybe 100 warriors, merchants, craftsmen gather here tonight. The Jarl sits at the high table, his closest warriors beside him. You're further down. Not elite, but respected enough to be invited. You've raided twice with the Great Heathen Army. You've settled in Jorvik. You've earned your place. Servants, some Saxon slaves, some free laborers, bring food, roasted pork, bread, cheese, fish from the North Sea, vegetables from local farms. The feast shows Danish prosperity. Jorvik eats well under Norse rule. The mead flows freely. Drinking horns passed around. The honey wine is strong, sweet, intoxicating. This is when Vikings bond, when warriors tell stories, when the sagas are shared and embellished. A skald, a Norse poet, stands to recite. He tells of Ragnar Lothbrok's legendary raids, how Ragnar supposedly sacked Paris, how he supposedly conquered Northumbria years ago, how the Saxons supposedly threw him into a pit of snakes, and his sons, Ivar, Halfdan, Bjorn, came for revenge. How much is true? Hard to say. Vikings love a good story more than strict facts. But the sagas serve a purpose. They create shared identity. They turn raiders into heroes. They justify conquest as divine destiny. Someone starts a flighting, a verbal duel of insults. 2 warriors trade increasingly creative insults, trying to make the crowd laugh. It's entertainment, but also social bonding. Vikings value wit as much as strength. A Saxon musician plays. Yes, Saxon. Some Saxons have integrated enough to perform in Danish halls. He plays a lyre, a stringed instrument, and sings in accented Norse. A song about brave warriors and beautiful women. Universal themes. You notice Danish and Saxon sitting together, drinking together. Last year they were enemies. This year they're neighbors. In 10 years they'll be relatives. This is how conquest becomes integration. Through trade, law, and feasts. Through shared experiences that blur the line between conqueror and conquered. But don't mistake this for peace. Outside this hall, the Great Heathen Army is planning next year's campaigns. Wessex remains unconquered. Mercia is unstable. East Anglia needs pacifying. The war continues. But in Jorvik, between battles there are feasts, and trade, and laws. And slowly, gradually, a new culture being born. Night falls over Jorvik. Torches light the streets. The city settles into evening routines. Guards on the walls, workshops closing, families gathering in longhouses. You stand by the Ouse, watching the river flow past. This water connects you to Scandinavia, to Denmark where you were born, to Norway, to the vast Viking world stretching from Iceland to Constantinople. But Jorvik is home now. Not temporary camp, not raiding base. Home. You'll raise children here. They'll be half Saxon probably. They'll speak both Norse and English. They'll worship both Odin and maybe, eventually, Christ, because that's coming too. Within a generation, Danish rulers will convert to Christianity. Not from conviction necessarily, but from pragmatism. Christian legitimacy helps rule Christian subjects. Right now, though, the old gods still reign. Thor's hammer amulets hang around necks. Sacrifices are made to Odin. The Saxons' churches are mostly empty or converted to other uses, but that will change. In 300 years, York Minster, one of Europe's greatest cathedrals, will rise where pagan temples now stand. The Viking influence will remain, but Christianized. The Great Heathen Army that conquered Jorvik will eventually fracture. Halfdan will die in Ireland. Ivar will disappear from history. Guthrum will convert to Christianity and become a legitimate king in East Anglia. And Alfred, that young Saxon prince in Wessex, will do the impossible. He'll stop the Danish advance. In 878 AD, after years of defeats, he'll He'll win a decisive victory at Edington. He'll force Guthrum to sign a treaty establishing the formal Danelaw boundary. The Vikings will keep Jorvik in the north. Alfred will keep Wessex in the south. A divided England. But even then, the cultural fusion continues. Alfred's descendants will eventually conquer the Danelaw, but they'll absorb Norse customs in the process. The resulting England will be Anglo-Scandinavian, hybrid, different from what came before. In 1066, a Norwegian Viking king, Harald Hardrada, will invade, trying to claim England for Scandinavia one last time. He'll fail, dying at Stamford Bridge near York. 3 weeks later, William the Conqueror, himself descended from Vikings who'd settled in Normandy, will invade from France and succeed. Viking influence one way or another wins. Today, you can visit York. The Viking heritage is everywhere. The Jorvik Viking Center sits on the archaeological site of Coppergate, the street where you sold furs this morning. Excavations revealed leather shoes, combs, jewelry, exactly as they were in 866 AD. The street layout is still partly Viking. The linguistic legacy remains. Yorkshire dialect contains Norse words. DNA studies show northern England has significant Scandinavian ancestry. The Vikings didn't just raid. They stayed. They married. They became English. You don't know any of this. You're just a Danish warrior turned merchant, living in a conquered city, trying to build a new life. But your descendants will shape England for 1,000 years. Cliffhanger ending. In our next journey, we'll witness another invasion that changes England forever. But this time, the invaders are Normans, and the English king facing them is the last Anglo-Saxon ruler of England. 1066, the end of the Viking Age, and the beginning of medieval England.